How many times have we heard that electric cars are the future? But what if the future is already here and no one even noticed it coming? Over the past few years, we have seen one giant after another trying to break ahead in the race for electric cars. Tesla, Volkswagen, Ford, they all have ambitious plans, but in the shadows, without loud announcements or hype. A company is quietly and relentlessly changing the rules of the game. This is not just a new player. This is a player that is already ahead of the pack, and against the backdrop of its growth, the industry's traditional leaders are beginning to lose ground. Who is it? You won't believe it, but we're talking about the Chinese company BYD.
Well, this feels more like a Tesla-only story when you look at just this fall in EV sales for them that they're suffering across Europe, down 45% in January. The wider EV market in Europe up 37%, so rivals are catching up and performing.
In 2008, when the world was just beginning to pay attention to electric cars, BYD sold 10% of its shares to Warren Buffett himself. At the time, no one took this move seriously, and the company, which started out manufacturing batteries for mobile phones, was a far cry from the huge and powerful corporations that dominated the automotive market. But just a few years later, in the shadow of Tesla's and other brands' high-profile presentations, BYD began to build its empire.
Teslas are being torched across the country. Dealerships shot up and set on fire. Spray paint to vandalize and make a statement. People in Southern California are getting notes on their Teslas, calling them complicit Nazis for owning electric cars.
And now, when the whole world is discussing Elon Musk's latest tweet, BYD is producing 30,000 electric cars a day. And these are not concepts, dreams, or prototypes. This is reality, which has long since hit the streets of major cities around the world. From Budapest to Bogota, from Shenzhen to Madrid, BYD has become an indispensable part of the transport infrastructure. And most surprisingly, no one noticed how it happened.
I mean, the things that he's doing is not trying to make America better. He's ruining our infrastructure, every department in our government he's ruining. And he's right now destroying our economy. He's taken away all of our allies. We're a pariah in the world.
Are we really blind to all this because we're used to thinking that if someone isn't shouting about it from the rooftops, it doesn't matter? While Tesla is building gigafactories that produce only a fraction of what is needed for full-scale production, BYD is building real gigasystems, self-sufficient production complexes where all components are manufactured in-house. While other companies wait for deliveries from different corners of the globe, BYD simply goes to the next workshop and assembles everything it needs without wasting time or compromising on quality.
Well, you will hear people over in Europe say the new Model Y, the Juniper, could be a difference maker, but that's been in that market now for more than a month. And you would think that you'd see a greater snapback if it's going to be a difference maker. Look, we could be wrong. It could be a difference maker once you get the sales for April, May, and June. But when you have a country like Norway, I think the sales were down something like 11% there. I mean, that's a very savvy EV consumer in Norway. And that's long been a strength for Tesla. Very small market, not huge volume, but I think almost all of the vehicles they sell there are electric. And they embraced Tesla long before others. And, you know, the reports there are not encouraging.
And this is just the beginning. In 2024, the company signed huge contracts with governments around the world, and in the US, they are taking their first steps through Mexico, avoiding tariffs and political obstacles. While competitors are struggling with a shortage of cobalt and graphite, BYD is already creating its own solutions that do not depend on external supplies.
Running around on stage with the Tesla stock price, where the stock price had gone in half. And he was overjoyed. What an evil thing to do. What a creep, what a jerk. Like who derives joy?
Tesla, despite all its grandeur and marketing ploys, finds itself in a situation where it no longer has the speed and flexibility to maintain its leadership. Just when it thought it had everything under control, BYD entered the scene and rewrote the rules of the game. And now, While some are trying to figure out how to regain their leadership, others are quietly but confidently capturing the market.
Outperforming as well in some cases, doing better than Tesla. And you just have to think, how much more is this a sustained issue for Tesla going forward, given the fact that you have Elon Musk, who's been very forthright in his opinions, particularly weighing in on politics, particularly in Europe. We've just had the European elections, which Musk has been very focused on. But across the piece, when you look at the performance for Tesla in Europe, it's not just in small countries. A lot of countries where Tesla has been performing badly, including in Germany, in the UK where it has been lagging, and Spain as well.
We are all used to the idea that the biggest brands are always companies with big names and big presentations. But what if the real revolution is happening without all the fanfare? Today we'll tell you how BYD turned electric cars from just a product into an undisputed standard. And if you think Tesla is still the leader, think again. The story begins here.
That's from the European Automobile Manufacturers Association. People just choosing with their wallets to not buy Teslas because of that Musk-Trump association. And actually here in London, an activist group called Everyone Hates Elon actually have been hacking bus stop signs with posters. I actually passed one yesterday. First, I wasn't quite sure what was happening, but it said the words 0 to 1939 in 3 seconds. Illusion here, 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds or something. But this poster was alluding to the start of World War II, and the image was of Musk giving that hand salute that we saw at Trump's inauguration that many have attacked as a Nazi gesture. Musk, though, has neither admitted or denied what he was doing. But we're seeing the knock-on effect of that anti-Musk anger across Europe and in terms of sales.
2008. The world of electric cars is just beginning to develop, and this year sees events that will become the starting point for the future automotive revolution. It is a time when all the major car giants are beginning to take an interest in electric cars, but are not yet taking them seriously. The Chinese company BYD, which had previously manufactured batteries for mobile phones, decided to take an important step to sell 10% of its shares to one of the world's most famous investors, Warren Buffett. At the time, few believed that this deal would change the automotive market in any way. The battery and hybrid manufacturer was still far from being a global leader in the automotive industry. Who could have imagined that this was the beginning of something much bigger than just an investment in a promising company?
371, most were saying 350 to 360. Now they're coming in at 336,068, production of 362,615. So for some point of reference here, you're going back to Q2, maybe Q1 of 2022 in terms of the last time that they had production this or deliveries this low for one quarter. So again, Tesla deliveries worse than expected at just over 336,000 deliveries in the first quarter. Guys, I'll send it back to you.
That's horrible. Can I just ask Phil, how about the Cybertruck? How's that doing? You got a little inventory there in the Cybertruck?
People laughed because it seemed that this Chinese company, which started out producing cheap batteries and primitive hybrids, could not compete with the giants of the automotive industry. At a time when Tesla was just gaining popularity and Elon Musk was putting on spectacular shows at world exhibitions, no one noticed that BYD was building a system day by day and step by step that would eventually take over the entire market. No hype, no advertising, no big promises, just day after day. They are opening factory after factory, creating chips and components, manufacturing their own batteries and car bodies. They work in complete silence, without putting themselves on display. And now, a few years later, the world is beginning to take notice, but it's too late.
Does that help Tesla? I mean, you had Tim Waltz, who's a huge jerk,
A company that once produced simple hybrids and manufactured batteries for phones now produces 30,000 electric cars a day. 30,000. And these are not concepts or prototypes, but real cars that are on the streets of cities around the world. And all this has been done by a single company that didn't get enough attention to make a real splash in its early years. It all happened quietly, without pompous presentations, loud statements, or high-profile advertising campaigns. Instead of focusing on the appeal of its cars, BYD simply started making them faster, cheaper, and more reliable than everyone else. And at some point, while Tesla was putting on another show, Biden quietly took over the market. But the most surprising thing is that no one even noticed.
Over the last couple of months. But the other thing that this could potentially be is an attempt at readjustment or correction by the Trump administration, in that one of Trump's closest kind of allies and supporters, and someone who's clearly very influential in the administration, is coming out to kind of push back against the recently implemented policies. So I'm thinking, or maybe hopeful is the right word, that this might be a signal that the administration is considering walking back some of those policies.
What happens when a company builds its empire in the shadows? And what happens when it starts doing everything in-house without external dependencies? The secret to Biden's success is that, unlike other automakers, it did not rely on third-party suppliers. They manufacture everything from batteries to chips, from car bodies to lithium-ion batteries that charge faster and safer. While Tesla struggles with cobalt and graphite shortages and sometimes suspends production due to supply disruptions, Biden solves these problems on the spot. In-house production of all components allows the company not only to reduce its dependence on external supplies, but also to accelerate production processes to incredible speeds. But the key point is not that they can produce everything themselves. What is important is how Biden has approached the organization of its factories. Their plants operate with the precision of computer processors built to Japanese standards, but with Chinese hyper-efficiency in mind, the factories allow the company to assemble cars faster than its competitors. The equipment is configured so that every chip and every microcircuit undergoes automatic calibration with minimal error, which was previously only available in the aerospace industry. All these technologies allow cars to be assembled at phenomenal speeds, with minimal human error and with a precision that previously seemed impossible for mass production.
We've accomplished more in 43 days than most administrations accomplished in 4 years or 8 years, and we are just getting started.
He praised all the domestic actions he has taken so far on immigration.
And I deployed the U.S. military and border patrol to repel the invasion of our country.
And spending cuts.
We are draining the swamp. It's very simple.
And so, when the situation in the automotive industry began to change dramatically, all eyes were once again on Tesla, which continued to adhere to the old business model. But at this time, Biden was pursuing a different strategy, not through loud statements, but through practical steps. It began to lay the foundation to become not just a car manufacturer, but a player that would determine the future of the global electric vehicle market. Biden continued to build its empire, and with each passing year, its influence became more and more apparent. But what really shook the market was how quickly and confidently the company restructured not only its production, but also the global market. After overtaking Tesla in sales and revenue, Biden came to the conclusion that it was not just manufacturing cars but taking steps that were literally changing the rules of the game. The company took responsibility for the entire chain, from battery production to the creation of its own chips and control systems. This was the key to its success. Unlike others who had to rely on supplies from around the world, Biden created a closed ecosystem that did not depend on external factors.
Tesla shares have slumped by more than 9% amid a fall in sales in Europe. The electric vehicle maker posted lower sales across 5 European countries, including France and the UK. Joining us now to discuss this is CBS News foreign correspondent Remy Inocencio. Remy, why do we believe these sales are dropping? What's driving that?
Sure. Well, Errol, basically what Elon Musk has been talking about over the past, say, few months, ever since Donald Trump's election back to the White House, that has been fueling this anger, this frustration, some even say disgust towards Musk, and they're taking it out on Tesla. Tesla now feeling the pain. But because of what's happening here in Europe, Tesla sales fell by nearly half across the continent just last month, 45%.
For other automakers, supply issues are nothing new. Cobalt, which is used in batteries, was a problem for Tesla and other manufacturers until Biden stopped using it. The company offered an alternative that was not only comparable to cobalt in terms of performance, but also significantly safer. The problem of battery overheating and spontaneous combustion, which had long been one of the biggest challenges for electric vehicles, simply disappeared. This became a huge advantage for BYD because the company's batteries do not catch fire, do not explode in the event of a short circuit, and can withstand extreme loads that other batteries simply would not survive. This feature has attracted attention not only in China but also internationally. In Europe and the US, where safety is a top priority, buyers have begun to favor these models.
Canada, the largest supplier of steel to the U.S., slapping new tariffs on $20 billion worth of U.S. goods that are sold in Canada. And the 27 countries of the European Union imposing retaliatory tariffs on up to $28 billion worth of U.S. goods sold in Europe, including Harley-Davidson motorcycles and Kentucky bourbon. President Trump with the Irish Prime Minister visiting the White House today. The president suggesting his tariffs won't stop here, saying, "Of course, I'm going to respond." And tonight, right here, the new poll showing 56% of Americans disapprove of President Trump's handling of the economy. The number's even worse now on the president's tariffs.
But the most important part of this strategy was how the company built its global network. Unlike its competitors, who focused on sales through dealerships and small marketing campaigns, BYD began working with government agencies. The company signed contracts with various countries to replace municipal buses with electric buses, put its cars in taxi fleets, and sign agreements to supply transportation for government agencies. While other automakers focused on individual buyers, BYD understood that the real business was working with government agencies and bulk purchases. Thanks to these contracts, the company not only expanded its scale but also became part of the infrastructure of entire countries.
Hey Diane, this investigation really just beginning, and one of the key elements will of course be the surveillance video, and investigators potentially have a lot of it to work with as they try to figure out what caused this fire. We know that surveillance footage has been turned over, including video from each of the cars, which could prove vital to understanding what happened here, because each vehicle has its own camera system that works even when the car is off, and 16 cars burned in this fire, and right now investigators don't know what caused it.
As a result of these steps, BYD set standards not only for electric vehicles, but for the entire automotive industry. European cities began to switch to electric buses en masse, and Chinese megacities not only replaced old taxis, but also introduced new service systems based on electric vehicles. The development of production and distribution of cars was faster than ever before. In 2024, for example, the company launched several new models that began assembly within weeks of their announcement, making the process of bringing new cars to market faster than any other player in the industry. The company went even further in its actions, raising the issue of creating new standards for all electric vehicles. In Poland and Mexico, BYD participated in the development of new regulations for electric buses and charging stations, which allowed it not only to supply vehicles, but also to establish its own standards in legislation. This was a strategic move that allowed the company to become not just a market participant, but a driving force. Ultimately, all these steps led to the company taking a leading position, and old players such as Volkswagen, Ford, and General Motors found themselves in a situation where they had to adapt to the new realities.
After Trump imposed those sweeping 25% tariffs on aluminum and steel imports, the European Union retaliating with tariffs on up to $28 billion of U.S. goods. Trump making it clear this isn't over, vowing to respond in kind with sweeping retaliatory tariffs early next month.
They're doing what they should be doing, perhaps, for the European Union, but it does create ill will. And as you know, we're going to be doing reciprocal tariffs. So whatever they charge us, we're charging them.
Canada also striking back with new tariffs on $20 billion worth of U.S. goods, mostly steel and aluminum, but also computers and sporting goods.
All this was made possible by an approach that was fundamentally different from that of everyone else. BYD thought about the future, but not through marketing and presentations, but through real changes in infrastructure, production, and management. It was much more than just building cars. It was a global transformation that affected everything from manufacturing methods to how electric vehicles became part of government policy and urban infrastructure. Now, as other companies try to catch up, Biden is already setting the pace. And perhaps in the near future, the entire automotive world will be looking not to Tesla, but to Shenzhen, where Biden continues its relentless work. When it seemed that America would remain the last bastion for automakers, Biden made its move. It did not go on the offensive with loud presentations, fanfare, and flashy shows. No, it took a quiet and strategic path that no one expected. Through Mexico, using the USMCA agreement, which provided preferences for production in that region, the Chinese company began building factories right on the US border. Formally, this is Mexican production, but in fact it was a direct route to the American market without tariffs or political resistance. No one could have expected such a move. While the political debate over tariffs and trade wars continued, Biden simply built factories and prepared products for delivery to the US.
KTLA Samantha Cortese joins us live with more on the wave of vandalism in protest of Elon Musk and his role in Washington. Sam?
Hi, Sharon, Micah. The ATF and FBI are collaborating with federal, state, and local law enforcement to investigate acts of domestic terrorism surrounding Teslas.
And just when everyone thought that Biden was only beginning its expansion, the Chinese company went further and made several moves that caused quite a stir. While most automakers continue to fight for every buyer in car dealerships, Biden has found a different way. The company decided to sign agreements with local dealers to supply its cars to large supermarkets and chains. This move was met with confusion, but with each passing month, the company saw growing interest in its models. Soon, Biden electric vehicles began to be sold directly on the shelves of American supermarkets. What was fantasy for many became a strategic move for Biden, allowing it not only to eliminate middlemen, but also to reduce the price of its cars.
But they are not ruling out the possibility that this was arson. At the same time, as you just mentioned, there are groups that have been organizing ongoing and peaceful protests at Tesla dealerships around the world. These demonstrations targeting Elon Musk and his affiliation with the Trump administration. Italy's prime minister is said to be close friends with Musk, and there were reports that Teslas have been vandalized in her hometown in Italy. Diane.
Biden's rapid growth, which outpaced all of its competitors, created a new reality in which Western auto giants, such as Volkswagen and Ford, were forced to adapt to new standards. At this point, it became clear that the changes that led to Biden's success were not accidental. The company was not just building cars, it was effectively rewriting the rules of the game, adapting the industry to its philosophy, a philosophy where success is measured not by loud slogans, but by systematic work that delivers results. Thus, in a very short time, Biden became not just a car for buyers, but a complete solution for global infrastructure. It became part of politics and the state system, which allowed the company not only to dominate the European and Chinese markets, but also to enter the US market not through political slogans, but through real actions that cannot be ignored. And now, as competitors are just beginning to realize that the game is over, Biden continues to take steps that are changing the automotive industry and the global economy.